I never thought a simple dinner with friends would shatter my entire world, and the truth that followed made me question everything I knew about my family. My name is Elias and I'm 21. What I'm about to tell you happened exactly 72 hours ago. I had just finished a long week of classes and work, and my friend Maya had been insisting for days that we all needed to blow off some steam. So, we picked a little Italian place on the east side of town. Nothing fancy, just somewhere with good lighting and decent music. I remember standing in front of my closet, trying to decide between a dark hoodie and a plain jacket. It felt like such an insignificant choice at the time. I finally settled on the jacket because it had been drizzling earlier. I kissed my mom goodbye. She was watching some old movie in the living room, and told her I wouldn't be late. She smiled and told me to have fun. It was a normal night, the kind you forget almost immediately. When I got to the restaurant, my friends had already snagged a booth by the window. I could see Maya laughing from the sidewalk. She was telling some story with her hands waving everywhere. I slid into the booth, and for the next hour, it was exactly what I needed. We ordered garlic bread and sodas, took dumb photos, and teased each other about everything and nothing. But somewhere between the second round of drinks and the main course, a strange feeling crept in. It wasn't anxiety, not exactly. It was more like a quiet static in the back of my mind. A feeling that something was slightly out of place. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was just tired. But the feeling persisted, a low hum of wrongness I couldn't identify. Have you ever felt your instincts screaming at you before your brain can even form a thought? After a while, I told my friends I needed some air and to use the restroom. I stood up and started walking through the crowded restaurant. The place was packed with families, couples holding hands across the table, kids coloring on placemats. My eyes were scanning the room, not looking for anything in particular, just moving, and then they stopped. My entire body stopped. My father. He was sitting at a table on the far side of the room. I didn't need a second look. I knew the way he tilted his head when he listened. I knew the way his shoulders relaxed when he was comfortable. It was him. But he wasn't alone. A woman sat beside him, her hand resting on his arm. My chest tightened so fast it felt like I'd been punched. Then I saw the two children sitting across from them. A boy, maybe 9, and a girl who looked a few years younger. My mind went blank. I stood there frozen in the middle of the walkway, watching as the little boy said something to my father. My father laughed, a deep, genuine laugh, and reached over to ruffle the boy's hair. Then I heard it. The sound that split my reality in two. The girl looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes and said, "Clear as a bell, Daddy, can we get dessert?" The word hit me like a physical blow. My fingers went cold. My heart started pounding. I could feel it in my throat. Daddy, she called him Daddy. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a distant relative. This was a woman holding his hand, and children who called him father. I stumbled backward, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. I found a corner near the entrance, pressing my back against the wall. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was a charity thing, maybe he was a mentor. But the intimacy was undeniable. The way the woman leaned into him. The way the kids looked at him like he was their whole world. This was a life. A whole life I knew nothing about. How do you reconcile the man who taught you to ride a bike with a stranger living a secret life right in front of you? I pulled out my phone. My hands were trembling so much I could barely unlock it. I dialed my mom's number. It rang once, twice. On the second ring, she picked up. "Hey sweetie, everything okay?" Her voice was light, normal. "Mom," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'm at the restaurant. I just saw Dad." There was a pause. "Just a bit. Okay?" she said, her tone shifting, not panicked, but focused. "He's not alone," I hissed, trying to keep my voice low. "There's a woman. There are kids." "Mom, they just called him Dad." I expected the line to explode. I expected screaming, crying, chaos. But instead there was silence. Then her voice came back. Calm and steady, like she was talking about the weather. "Don't react. Do you hear me? Don't say a word. I'm on my way." The line went dead. I stared at my phone. What? My mind was screaming. She wasn't surprised. She was calm. Too calm. It was the calm of someone who already knew. I looked back at my father's table. He was laughing again, completely at ease, as if he had nothing to hide. And that's when the first wave of true terror hit me. Because if he had nothing to hide, and my mom wasn't surprised, what exactly was I a part of? The next 15 minutes were a blur. My friends were calling my name, asking if I was okay. I told them I was sick and had to go. I stood by the entrance, my eyes fixed on my father, watching the woman hand him a menu, watching the boy show him something on a phone. Every second felt like a lifetime. And then I saw her. My mother walked through the front door. She was wearing a simple coat, her hair tied back. She looked composed, almost serene. I rushed toward her, ready to unleash a flood of questions, but she held up a hand, stopping me in my tracks. "Stay here," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Mom? What are you?" I started. I said, "Stay." Her eyes weren't angry, they were determined. She turned and started walking toward my father's table. My heart was in my throat. This was it. The confrontation. The explosion. I braced myself for a scene. But what happened next made the ground fall out from under me. My father looked up, and his eyes met my mother's. Instead of panic or guilt, he smiled. A small, gentle, knowing smile, and my mother smiled back. What kind of marriage survives that kind of moment without a crack? They exchanged a nod. A silent conversation I couldn't interpret. Then my mother turned and walked back toward me, her expression unchanged. "Let's go home," she said, taking my arm. I pulled away, my voice rising despite myself. "No, Mom! Are you blind? He's sitting there with another family. Those kids are calling deaf. He has a whole other life." People were staring now. My face was hot with anger and confusion. "And you're just smiling?" Her grip on my arm tightened. Her voice, when it came, was like ice. "Noof. You don't know what you're talking about. You saw a moment. A single frame. You haven't seen the whole picture." She pulled me toward the door. "You're only seeing half the truth. Half the truth." The words echoed in my head as she guided me to the car. The drive home was suffocating. I sat in the passenger seat, my mind a hurricane of images, my father laughing, the kids calling Daddy, my mother's eerie calm. She didn't say a word. She just drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. The moment we walked through the front door, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I spun around, my voice cracking with emotion. "Tell me. Right now. Tell me what is going on." My mother walked past me, hung her coat on the hook, and sat down on the couch. She looked up at me, and for the first time that night, I saw the weight behind her eyes. "Sit down, Elias," she said softly. "It's time you knew." I sat across from her, my hands clenched into fists on my knees. She took a deep breath, and then she began. "This started years ago. Before you were old enough to understand. Your father had a best friend. His name was David. They grew up together. They were closer than brothers." She paused, her eyes distant. "David got sick. It was slow at first, then fast. We all thought he'd pull through. But he didn't." She looked at me, her voice steady. "Before he died, he called your father to his bedside. He was weak, barely holding on. He asked for one thing. A promise." Her voice tightened. He said, "My wife has no one. My kids will have no one. Promise me you won't let them fall through the cracks. Promise me you'll protect them." I felt my chest loosen slightly, a crack forming in my wall of anger. What do you do when a dying man asks you to be his legacy? Your father couldn't refuse. He couldn't, so he started helping. Money for rent, groceries, school fees. He visited to make sure they were okay. That was all it was supposed to be. She leaned forward. But then people started to talk. A young widow. A man visiting her home. The whispers began, the looks. The judgment. It was relentless. She paused, her jaw tightening. "One day, she called your father. She was crying. She told him, 'Please, stop coming here. You're ruining whatever reputation I have left. The world won't let a man help a woman without assuming the worst.'" She was terrified for her kids. She was alone. My mother's eyes met mine. "That's when your father realized money wasn't enough. He could support them, but he couldn't protect them from the world. The only way to stop the whispers, to give them a name, to give them protection, was to marry her." The words hung in the air. My mind was racing, trying to piece it together. It wasn't about love. My mother continued, her voice softer now. It was about a promise. It was about giving a dead man's family a shield. He came to me that night. He told me everything. He was terrified I would leave. He was terrified of losing us. What did you do? I whispered. She gave a faint, sad smile. I was angry. I was hurt. I felt like my life was being pulled apart. But then, I went to see her. I went to see the woman and those children. And I saw it. The fear in her eyes, the emptiness in their cupboards. The way the little boy flinched when I knocked on the door, because he was afraid of who it might be. Her eyes glistened. And I realized, this wasn't a betrayal. This was a man trying to carry a weight he never asked for. She reached out and took my hand. So I made a choice. I told your father. If this is a promise you made, then we will carry it together. From that day on, there were no secrets between us. But we kept it from you. We were afraid. Her voice cracked for the first time. We were so afraid you would hate him. That you would see him as a liar. That we would lose you. The front door clicked open behind me. I didn't turn around. I knew who it was. I heard his footsteps, slow and hesitant. And then I heard smaller footsteps. I turned. My father stood there, his face etched with exhaustion and fear. Behind him stood the woman from the restaurant, her hand on the boy's shoulder. The little girl was holding her other hand, hiding behind her mother's leg. My father looked at me, his eyes red. They know everything now, he said, his voice rough. I stood up. My legs felt weak. The anger was gone, replaced by a profound aching understanding. I walked toward him, my eyes blurring with tears. I didn't say a word. I just wrapped my arms around him and held on tight. His arms came around me and I felt him shake. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you. I pulled back, looking at the woman and the children standing in our doorway. My mother stood up and walked over to them. She put a hand on the woman's arm, a gesture of solidarity. I looked at my father, at the weight he had been carrying alone, and the partnership my mother had chosen. I realized in that moment I wasn't seeing a fracture. I was seeing the seams of a patch. A family that had been stitched together not by blood, but by promises. Is that any less real? Is that any less worthy of the name? That was 3 days ago. Things are different now, the house is louder. There are toys in the living room, and the smell of unfamiliar cooking mixes with our own. My mother and the woman, her name is Sarah, drink coffee together on the porch. My father comes home from work and 2 kids run to greet him, yelling Dad. And I find myself smiling instead of hurting. Last night, we all had dinner together. 1 table, 8 chairs. My mother was laughing at something the little girl said. My father was showing the boy how to fold a napkin into a hat. And I sat there looking at this crazy, unconventional, beautiful mess of a family. And I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Peace. My father was never living a lie, he was living a promise. And my mother didn't accept it, she chose it. She chose to turn a secret into a family. So if you ever find yourself seeing only half the truth, give it time, give it space. Because sometimes, the things that look like betrayal are actually the heaviest acts of love you'll ever witness.